Hello, loves. How are you doing? Corinne Clapham here, your intuitive wellness guide, also psychic reader, oracle, and tarot reader, Reiki master, amongst other magical delights that help people get to the root of what has been causing the physical and emotional discomfort and pain, releasing it on an energetic, cellular, and soul level. All right, my dear friends, let's get into this new moon energy, this new vibe. We are having a new moon, May 11th. And it'll be at its peak at 2:59 p.m. Eastern time. This will be in the zodiac sign Taurus. Where's all my Tauruses? Put it in the comments below. I would love to know who y'all are and where you are in the world right now. And so some characteristics of Taurus. Actually, before we even get into this, I want to explain the energy of the new moon. And before I even get into that, I also want to explain, why do we even care what zodiac sign it's in? What does that do for us? Because some of you might be hearing, oh, well, it's in the sign of Taurus. I'm not a Taurus, so therefore, what does that do for me? However, when we have the moon's energies in zodiac signs, it can really heighten the characteristics, the themes that are in that. And so even though we may not be a Taurus ourselves, we can still see these characteristics and the shadow aspects of it that may be enhanced in our life. And when we are aware of it, then we know how to utilize that energy. And not only that, when we know the shadow aspects, we can be more aware if we start seeing ourselves playing those shadow aspects out or them creeping into our sphere. And then we know how to bring things back into balance. So that's why I find it very important for us to know and very useful for us to know. Now, new moons are all about new beginnings, planting new seeds. If you think about the moon and how it goes through its phases, it goes from a new moon and then it goes all the way to a full moon and then it continues its cycle. And so with a new moon, it's a new beginning, it's a fresh start. It's a really good time to plant your seeds and to get more clear on what it is that you want to bring into this next moon phase within your reality. And so a Taurus, Tauruses are earth signs. Okay, we have earth, water, air, and fire. So earth signs, and they're also a fixed sign. So Tauruses tend to be very grounded, very stable. And there's something else I want to say. Oh, yes, they're ruled by Venus. So every zodiac sign is also ruled by a certain planet. And why that matters to us as well is because each planet has its own characteristics and themes as well. So we can see those also being enhanced during those times or during the times of transits or during the times of retrogrades. And so Venus is all about love. It's all about beauty. And again, when we think about Tauruses, they generally, and everything is generally speaking here, but they generally really appreciate a very inviting atmosphere. Libras can be like this as well. And so it's like they can be, the way they feel can really be, I don't want to say based on, but the surroundings can have an impact on how they feel. And so Tauruses really like to have their comfort. They really like to have things in place. They like to feel stable. They're very much about nature, very much the beauty of nature. And I'm not surprised, especially because they are also ruled by the planet of Venus. Very grounding energy as well, which is another reason why I'm not surprised that they're very drawn to nature as well, because nature is very, very grounding. Their sensory levels can be a little bit more heightened than maybe other zodiac signs or the average person as well. So what I mean by that is maybe sounds. They're a little bit more in tune to sounds or to sense, to physical touch. And so Tauruses also really enjoy like really nice soothing sounds, whether it's music or it's nature, very beautiful soothing aromas. I keep using the word soothing, but it's very like connecting. It's very grounding, right? And so when we ground ourselves, like for example, when I use my essential oils, I find that really helps me to bring me into a different kind of energy, a different frequency that can help ground me down, especially nature as well. I find there was in March, I found I was going through, there's so much going on within me. Energetically and also in the external world. And I found that I just needed to ground so much more than I normally did. And one of the most amazing ways and is completely free and completely accessible to most people, is earthing. I'm kind of digressing a little bit here, but still, this is an important tip that you can implement for yourself, because earthing, what that is, it's walking barefoot onto the earth, onto the soil, onto the grass. If you have your own backyard, you can do it. If you live in the city, I used to live downtown in the city, and of course you got to be a little bit more mindful of that. Make sure there's nothing, that you could step on that wouldn't be pleasant to step on. You just need to be mindful of that, obviously. But other than that, there has been studies that have been done that has said that it can really reduce depression, anxiety levels. It can really help with our mental health. And so that's the reason why I wanted to share this as well. All right. Some other things about Tauruses. Yes, they really like structure, consistency. They're very stable. Again, a lot of that comes from the fixed energy, the earth energy that they have within them. Very pragmatic, can be very devoted. I find a lot of them are very work focused as well. And every zodiac sign has its shadow aspects. Okay. Some people call them weaknesses. I don't like using that word, but I say shadow aspects. And so some of them for Tauruses, it could be stubbornness or possessive, or don't like to compromise. Like they can be very set in their way, and they can sometimes be very direct in how they speak, because they have just such a clear vision and they're very focus oriented, just want to like get it done, point A to B. That sometimes it can be, the communication can sometimes be a little bit too direct, right? And like I said, every zodiac sign has its shadow aspects. So, just know that. But like I was saying earlier in the video, when we know these characteristics or these traits or even these shadow aspects, we can be more aware if we are too much out of balance or in balance of any of these characteristics. And when we have that awareness, then we always have that power of choice. Do we want to continue with that, or do we want to implement something else? And so even if you're a Taurus or not, if we find ourselves getting into these energies, especially when it's heightened by the moon's energies, but in general, as human beings, then we can make that conscious choice. Like, what do we need to do? If we're finding that we're being too stubborn, what is it? Like, why are we having that energy? Is it because we're so fixated on a certain outcome? Or perhaps we have such a strong belief. Like, it's really good as human beings, I think, to question ourselves in a gentle and loving way. But that's how we can kind of get more information of what's going on, why we're doing things, why are we reacting this way, why are we behaving this way. When we understand where that's coming from, it can be a little bit easier to lift that off and come into a better energy. Like when we notice that, it's like, okay, well, what would be more productive? What is really the fear in like being stubborn and not allowing other people to bring in ideas? Or what's the fear in letting go and being able to compromise, right? And as all of us and human beings, whether you're a Taurus or not, we all have these moments where we can be like this. It's just certain energies or characteristics can have more of this, more of that. But at the end of the day, we're all here, we're all learning, and we're all growing. So I wanted to just do a quick little channel on this moon phase for everyone, and then I'm going to pull a card, and then I will have a tip for you on what you can do in this new moon. And for anybody who really wants to deep dive and getting crystal clear on what it is that you want to bring into fruition into this moon phase, and also have the aid of the healing aspect as well. So when we do that, we lift off the layers, and then we're able to manifest in a more clear flow, a more clear vessel. I will tell you about something that you can join to do that as well. So let me just tune in and tap in here. I do see the word rigid here. So I think that's just something for all of us to be mindful. If we see that energy coming up within ourselves, again, it's to be inquisitive. Why are we being rigid? Normally when we're behaving or acting a certain way with these more confined emotions or elements, there's usually a fear behind it, right? Because if we didn't have any fears behind it, then we would be completely open into compassion and love. And so when we find ourselves in these other ways, it's really to dig deep a little bit beneath the layers to see what is even catapulting that to begin with. So if you do notice a little bit of rigidness, inconformity, is to really see where does that come from. Because what I sense too, even a lot of people who fall into that pattern or will fall into that pattern in this moon phase, a lot of it is actually not even our own. A lot of it is pre-programmed and conditioning, and then we're just on automatic, and we've adopted those belief systems, or we've adopted those ways of being. And so really just stripping that back when we notice that we are doing that. I just want to tune in a little bit more and see what else that we have. I see a C word. I almost want to say compassion, but I don't feel like that's the word. Maybe it's compromise. It's so interesting. I was just doing a one-on-one session with a client earlier today, and she was telling me about something that she's currently going through and needed some insight on. But as she was telling me about it the whole time, I was seeing the word compromise, and it's interesting. I'm seeing it here. And of course, that would make sense, especially if we're bringing in this, or if we have the susceptibility of falling into being rigid, then we can bring in the compromise. Now, here's the other element too, because of some of the other planetary placements, a lot of big themes that are also playing out right now are boundaries. Okay, and we've been seeing this play out the past couple of weeks as well. And so there's this really fine line, and this is why I always talk about the pendulum. If you think about that pendulum that's swinging, it's so easy to just be completely out of balance on this side, and then get into balance, and then sometimes get out of balance completely the other way too. And so it's having this discernment of where we can compromise versus what our boundaries are. And someone might ask, well, what's the difference between the two? And it's not really a black or white question, because at the end of the day, it's really digging deep into your values, your morals, and how you feel. But here's a little caveat, I suppose you could say. We can have values and morals. And there's a difference between something we feel strongly about within that versus something that our ego and our mind wants to hone in on as something specific, because it's coming from a past wound, a childhood wound, some sort of thing that is triggering it. Especially, we had the last full moon, it was a super full moon, in the sign of Scorpio. And with that, sometimes, some of the shadow aspects of Scorpio, sometimes they can be a little bit stubborn too, but, and I'm not hating on that. Again, every zodiac sign has its shadow aspects, and we can all, have a little bit of these elements within us. But even with Scorpios, they're water signs. And so is Pisces, and for some reason I'm forgetting, is it Sagittarius? I'm not sure, but I know Pisces for sure, and Scorpio are water signs. And water signs can tend to be quite emotional. And then Scorpio is known to be one of the most intense emotional zodiac sign of the three within the water signs. And so it's being very mindful when our emotions are taking over and starting to tell us stories that are not fully accurate. When our mind is telling us stories where it's coming from our past hurt, our past wounds, and then we've created these stories that sometimes we may see things in a very skewed perception. So this is what I mean. We have to really use discernment when we have certain strong ideas or strong things that we want to stand for, or values or morals or boundaries, versus of like what really nurtures our soul, and what is something that is not in alignment with it. And then that's where we place our boundary, right? So there is a difference between the two. So really having the awareness with that, and all, it really just takes time with that. It all takes time about being an observer to our own selves, and really taking ourselves out from the picture for a moment so we can look at it from a different perspective instead of being very involved. Because sometimes when we're very involved emotionally, it can be from a different energy. We can see things differently. And I love using this analogy. It's like a Monet painting. If you're up close to it, you just see all these little paint strokes, and it just looks like a bunch of smears. But then when we take a step back, it's this beautiful big picture that we can see. But we wouldn't have seen that if we're up so close to it. So sometimes we need to just take that step back and then be able to see it from there. So those are a couple of things to be mindful of. But at the same time, like the fun part of all this too is the new moon is getting clear on what you want to bring into this new phase. What do you want to, what seeds do you want to plant to grow for this new moon phase, and to really focus on that, and to really watch when, again, the mind and the ego come in with those stories, and then bringing it back to what we really desire. Okay, so those are my suggestions for you to be what you can kind of watch for this moon, what you can play with, and then what you want to implement. If anybody actually wants to dive deeper into really manifesting what you want, we have the New Moon Awakening. I will be facilitating that Tuesday, May 11th at 7 p.m. Eastern. And in the description box, you can hit the link there to get more details on it if you'd like. But I go way more in depth of the astrological current forecast and what's going on, and how it's affecting us individually as a collective, how we can use the energies to support and serve us rather than feeling like it's working against us. And then we also have Kundalini Yoga I incorporate. There's always a healing component in there. And then there'll be a manifesting component in there as well. This one I'm very excited. I'm always excited about each one because each one is always very different. But I'm super excited about this one because I just got reunited with my crystal singing bowls. So I get to do a nice, complete this New Moon Awakening with all of you with a nice crystal sound healing bath. And that's healing on a sound, or through sound, which is very magical. I used to do sound healing all the time when I was doing my moon ceremonies in person. Of course, this is way before COVID. I really do miss teaching yoga classes, meditation, and my moon events in person. But at least we have technology and we can connect that way. And the pluses are, no matter where you are in the world, you're able to join us, which is great. And not only that, I usually will leave up to 3 days after the moon for people to still register and get access to the recording. And then you have access to it for a couple of weeks to do it as many times as you'd like. But for anybody who wants to join in on the live, for sure, register before Tuesday, 7 p.m. The link is below. What's a couple other things? I'm going to pull a card too. The other thing I wanted to say, yes, definitely hit the subscribe button and notifications button if you want to see more messages coming in for the moons. I also do free love readings, Oracle and Tarot love readings, weekly ones. So if that's something that really intrigues you and you like to get guidance off that, definitely hit the subscribe button, notifications, so that way you get notified every time. And then I also have meditations on my YouTube channel that are there and free and accessible. And I feel like I'm missing something. Was there something else? Yeah. Well, and anybody who wants a one-on-one session for psychic reading, medium reading, that's connecting with loved ones and getting messages and healing through there. And then Oracle and Tarot, there's also a link in the description box. Let's pull a card for this moon. Ooh, beautiful. Awesome, awesome. Okay. By the way, this is the Work Your Light Oracle card deck from Rebecca Campbell. I absolutely love this deck. All of them have such beautiful pictures. So Anna, grandmother of Jesus, seeding the light, laying foundations, divine plan. And that is so perfect because we are talking about the new moon energy. We're talking about planting seeds that we want to grow. Okay, and so now I love this Oracle card because it just confirms that even more. And it confirms that we have the angelic realm behind us. They are listening. The universe listens, source listens, grace listens, our angels listens. If you believe in that. If you don't, that's okay too. But just know they're listening. So we want to focus on what it is that we do want to bring into this moon phase. Not what we don't, but what we do. Sometimes when we see what we don't want, it can help us to notice what it is that we do want, because you can see what you don't want and then you just flip that into something that you do want, right? So my dear friends, thank you for joining me here. And like I said, if you want to join us to dive in even deeper, you can join for the New Moon Awakening. Link is in the details box below. Hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed this, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Much love, Corinne Clapham here.